Live, Laugh, Larceny discusses true petty crimes that may be disturbing to some.
Or could be easy listening to all you psychopaths out there.
All stories are based on actual events, but details may vary.
Listener discretion is not advised.
Live,
Laugh,
Larceny. Welcome to Live, Laugh, Larceny, the show that themes an episode for everyone's favorite subject, politics.
Ooh!
Oh my gosh, the show that everybody was waiting for, right?
I don't know. But Trevin, you still haven't introduced yourself. What's your name?
Oh yeah, this is Trevin.
And I am Amanda, and is it time to get political?
Political.
It's time to get political.
When I was writing for this episode, I had that stuck in my head. I was singing it like that. So, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. And then you did it.
I'll take on the embarrassing behavior. Don't worry.
So yes, this is our election episode that is going to come out the day after the election because that's where Wednesdays are.
Yup.
And I'm not trying to sway any votes anyway, which who knows? The world will probably be on fire by the time this comes out. But I thought there's some different things I wanted to kind of write about, and let's just get it out of my system today.
No, I'm with you. And I knew the theme of where you were headed this week, but mine's not super into politics either, guys. So don't worry. And also, I know as far as my story goes, it doesn't really matter if you live in the United States or not, or what your political views are. I just think some political things that are happening in the world are just humorous and need to be made fun of.
I agree. But because I am doing the election story, I'm already going to tell you everything is going to have something to do with the president or election process this week from me.
Oh, okay. Well, you get a little break from me. I just have a little tie-in with my story this week to it, but not as far as my segment and my dilemma. So, Trevin?
Yes?
Do you want to start us off? What is your dreadful dilemma this week?
My dreadful dilemma actually has a lot to do with my trip to Massachusetts. Because Trevin done discovered America. As you know, I do not travel very much. I've only started traveling since starting this podcast. And in Massachusetts, I experienced something that was very interesting to me, being a person from the Midwest. So Emily once brought up this conversation with me about something she saw on TikTok. It's this idea of the living room kid or the bedroom kid. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
They say oh, are you a living room kid or a bedroom kid? What that kind of means is did you feel free enough to be yourself that you were a kid who hung out in the living room a lot, or were you a kid that hung out in your bedroom a lot?
Oh.
It kind of boils down to how comfortable are you to be yourself where you are. And I think I was kind of a hybrid just because I knew that, you have to be cool with your parents,
Yeah.
Politically, you got to be cool with the people who control your stuff. I started thinking more about that idea, the bedroom kid and the living room kid. There are a lot of kids that did just spend all the time in the bedroom because they didn't feel comfortable in the living room around their family, and that's where they could be. So I started noticing something when I was in Massachusetts. Here in the Midwest, we, of course, are going to get a lot of conservative news type things around here. There's a clear majority.
Any town apart from the big city, yeah. Exactly.
So I've had this kind of deep thought about the bedroom kid and the living room kid, and it's also kind of come with what I've experienced with my new job. I came from a very blue-collar, conservative type of industry before, the job that I hated and always talked shit on all the time. It was automotive, obviously, because I talked about salesmen. There was a certain way that we were treated when working there, and it was just a place where I was just screaming internally all the time because nobody seemed to care about you. And then I came to this new job, and it's been a culture shock to have these people be like, we care about how you feel, we care about, you and what you can do going forward, blah, blah, blah. So when I was in Massachusetts, I almost felt that same kind of culture shock that I felt leaving my old job and going to my new job as I did leaving Missouri and going to Massachusetts, except on a larger scale. There was just something in the air where it felt more accepting in a certain kind of way. And one of the things that really caught me off guard, which I'm sure this is going to be totally normal for a lot of people, but they had these big old beautiful churches made from like the 1800s. And in front of the very biggest one at the end of their main street, and it had 2 pride flags and a BLM flag right on the front of it. And to me, blew me away to see that, because
same.
Where I come from, pride and BLM and that kind of thing is something for the churches to say, oh no, we love these people. And that's just it. Like anytime they're confronted with it, they say yes, but then it's like quickly don't actually show it. Like I don't think a lot of churches around here, especially where I grew up, would be caught dead putting that on front of their church, because that would kind of make them a target and then have people kind of question something about what their beliefs are. Throughout my time in the town, I just saw so many of these little things like that, where it felt like in Missouri, a less binary thinking person would have to be a bedroom kid here. And so I feel here in Missouri, it's harder for me to find more kind of like-minded people, because here, this type of person is the bedroom kid, where we have to keep walking through the living room here, where it's just like, ooh, I got to get back to the bedroom. When I was in Massachusetts, I felt like I was the opposite, to where, oh, the living room here is a little bit more like my bedroom.
Right.
It just kind of made you feel a little more accepted in a weird way. There was less of an anxious feeling around by just feeling like everybody was just like, hey, whatever. And I'm not afraid to put this up.
Yeah.
And nothing's going to come back on me for having this up. And it was a very nice thing to just be in the world of.
When you even sent me pictures of the town, and you sent me the picture of the church with the pride flag and everything, I was like, that's amazing. Because, I also, like you, grew up in the Midwest, small town mentality. And it's just a beautiful thing that we do not get to see here at all.
Yes.
And to see that somewhere else is very cool, because it feels like not only do our words say that, we're in support, but we're going to show you with our actions and create a safe environment and a safer community. It's very cool.
Yes. The Midwest way, I feel like in a lot of ways, and I'm not trying to put anybody in a box and saying it's one particular person.
Yeah.
Like all I really know is my own experience, but I also have some friends' experience, and they got married to make their family happy in the church with their old like family pastor or whatever. And this is the kind of people that they would say, oh, like, oh no, we love gay people or LGBT people, whatever. But when doing the meet and greet before, like whatever the pre-meeting is before you get married, once they had them behind a closed door, they felt okay to say like, well, we kind of do this stuff to keep the gay people out from doing this kind of thing. Even though if confronted with somebody face to face, they're going to say, oh no, I love all these people. You kind of know there's a hidden thing, but you're just afraid to ask it and find it, you know? So it was just really nice to see something, putting it out there and saying, everybody's welcome, whatever.
Yeah. There's other flags and signs that mean the exact opposite thing, right? Like, if you're not this way, we don't accept you in this area. Where like these flags are like, we accept anyone. And if you are what these flags say, we also accept you too. I just wish there were more signs like that. That were more like, we accept everyone, not this represents who I don't accept.
When I grew up in the Midwest, I was told that like I can be whatever I want. And I'm not going to say anything bad about my parents, but it was very much like, I'm going to love you no matter what you do. You can be anything. And my parents didn't really try to shield things from me, but there was always just a way in which things were spoken where it's like, people can be this way, but it would be weird if it was you that was this way. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I love everybody. I think it's totally cool. You can be the way you want. But there's always like a but at the end of it. Like, but even though it's an option for the world, it's not really an option for you.
Yeah.
And for a child living with those kind of rules put on you, it makes it really hard to find yourself. Even if what you are is just a little different from normal and you're not something that they vilify or whatever. I think that probably caused me to be a much slower developer growing up. And to see that in Massachusetts made me think like, I wonder if kids just feel a little bit more okay to do what they want by seeing these kind of things.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that correlated. Well, that is honestly a very deep and insightful, dreadful dilemma this week, Trevin.
Thank you. I thought, I'm already doing this election episode. If people don't want to hear it, they just skip this whole episode, right?
Turn back now. Well, I also have a dreadful dilemma this week. And guys, this is not a political one, like I said earlier. But maybe it is. Honestly, the more I think about it, maybe it goes all the way to the top.
Oh, no. This has something to do with pooping your pants or something?
No. I kind of vented about this to you when we went to the And That's Why We Drink show, which shout out, that was so fun and amazing that we got to do that.
Yes, shout out to Christine, and Eva. All of you were great.
Oh my God, loved it. But it's about my road and the sinkhole in front of my home.
Oh yeah, you did briefly bring it up, yes.
Maybe years back I talked about the sinkhole on the podcast, maybe. But if not, let me just give you guys a little recap here about my street. So ever since Lila, my first oldest daughter, was a newborn, we've had street issues where there was a hole in my street right in front of my house. And they came and quote unquote patched it up or fixed it, whatever they fucking want to say they did. But over the years, and my daughter now is 6, it has been eroding and getting worse and worse and worse. I've reported it many times to the city. My dad's reported it. Jordan has, neighbors have reported it. Nothing's been getting done on it at all. And I'll post pictures, guys, on our Instagram because it's hard for me to explain. But the way they did the patch job to the original hole is it's like a really long and narrow rectangle patchwork situation that's like right in the middle of the street. And it's caving in like really bad now, Trevin.
Oh God, so it's causing more of a problem by being this thing sticking up too.
Yes, and to top it off, this past couple weeks, there has been an entire construction crew with, I'm talking fucking gigantic dump trucks, asphalt trucks, just every sort of construction, like big, heavy vehicles have been on my street going back and forth over the indention.
Yeah, because just down your road, it's getting majorly repaved or whatever.
Yes. And so here I was thinking, oh my God, there's a construction crew outside. They're working on the road, literally a block down. Surely that means the sinkhole and the caved in road is going to get fixed, right?
Yeah, like while we're here, let's just...
While we're fucking 2 houses down, why don't we just fix this problem? However, because of where the boundary is and where Kansas City meets the suburb of Gladstone, because of where that border is, they didn't have jurisdiction to fix my sinkhole. So they just continuously drove their weighted vehicles over and over and over again. It's way freaking worse. I'll take videos and pictures. You guys are going to be like, what in the hell?
Big trucks mess roads up so bad.
Yes. And I even one day walked up to an inspector sitting in his truck right out in front of my house. And I was like, so you guys aren't coming all the way down? It looks like you're just stopping right over there. And he was like, I know, it kills me to sit here every day watching our vehicles damage your already sinking street. But unfortunately, there's nothing I can do because it's Kansas City and Gladstone's area. He told me who to call. I actually spoke to a person on the phone.
Oh.
But the way it sounded was that they've already done the road work for Gladstone that they're going to do this year. So guys, just send me all the good wishes that my house doesn't fall into a sinkhole, or, you know, if my friends come by, their cars don't fall into the road.
Yeah, and you do have the party coming up.
I know.
Maybe this is the sign for you to get into politics. Mayor Amanda, I'm into it.
Fix the motherfucking streets!
And mainly just mine.
They'd be like, what's your slogan? Fix my sinkhole!
Yes.
That's all I care about. But it's dreadful nonetheless, and I hope it sometime gets repaired.
I hope so too, because I had to kind of dodge it a little bit when I came and picked you up.
It's a death trap, you guys.
Well, this week, we're going to do some killer facts.
Hello?
We've traced the facts. They're coming from inside the house.
Killer facts.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't going to be too political, but I found this really interesting. I'm just going to go off of Wikipedia, but I had read a fact about the presidential state car, I don't know that much about this vehicle. I thought maybe we could just talk a little bit about that.
I have never heard of this, so yes, do tell.
The car that the president rides in to go places, it's the United States presidential state car. It's nicknamed the Beast or Cadillac One or the first car. Has multiple names, I guess.
Whoa.
Codename Stagecoach.
Well, it's not a code name anymore.
No, not at all.
If it's online for us to read.
And again, just coming off of Wikipedia, so I'm just going to give some small things. If you guys want to learn more, I bet there's an awesome podcast that probably talked about this because I find this actually pretty interesting. The United States presidents embraced automotive technology in the early 20th century with President William Howard Taft's purchase of 4 cars and a conversion of the White House stables into a garage. Presidents rode in stock, unmodified cars until President Franklin D. Roosevelt's administration bought the Sunshine Special, the first presidential state car to be built to the United States Secret Service standards. Until the assassination of John F. Kennedy, presidential state cars frequently allowed the president to ride uncovered and exposed to the public. President Kennedy's assassination began a progression of increasingly armored and sealed vehicles. The 2009 to 2018 state car had 5-inch bulletproof glass and was hermetically sealed with its own environmental system. The current model of the presidential state car is a unique Cadillac that debuted in September of 2018. Decommissioned presidential state cars are dismantled and destroyed with the assistance of the Secret Service to prevent their secrets from being known to the outside parties.
What?
Late 20th century and 21st century presidential motorcades have consisted of 24 to 45 vehicles other than the presidential state car, including vehicles for security, healthcare, the press, and route clearing, among others.
I guess I never really thought about how much goes into the design and safety measures, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, its own environment was pretty cool. In addition to defensive measures designed to protect the president, this state car has stores of blood in the president's type for medical emergencies. That was the thing that blew me away the most. The car is hermetically sealed against chemical attacks and features run flats, night vision devices, smoke screens, and oil slicks as defensive measures against attackers.
No way. Blood?
Yeah, that was the thing, is like they just have his blood type on hand. So that means there's got to be somebody there who is trained to like get the IV and give him the blood if something were to happen in the car.
Holy shit.
NBC reported that the car features armor made of aluminum, ceramic, and steel. The exterior walls have a thickness of 8 inches. The windows are multi-layered and 5 inches thick, and each door believed to weigh as much as those on a Boeing 757.
Oh my God.
It says they can electrify the handles to deter entry.
Oh my. That is a very cool party trick.
And it's just kind of a fancy looking Cadillac.
You know the show Pimp My Ride that we grew up with?
With Exhibit?
With Exhibit. And they'd put like hot tubs and the biggest speaker systems ever. I think it'd be kind of funny if they did a presidential episode where they pimped out and they showed us, I mean, they would never, because like you said, security and safety, but it just sounded like a more official Pimp My Ride, but for presidents.
Yeah, like a death-proof version of Pimp My Ride.
They're like, and we got this whole cabinet inside for the blood.
We got jars of blood.
we got vials of blood for you.
Blood for days.
And check out this feature. It electrocutes the handles.
Yeah. I had that one time about the car that had the flamethrower on it, but that thing I don't think was armored.
Holy shit. Well, yeah. It is kind of insane that back in the day, the presidents were just like, hi, everyone, waving like a pageant queen on the back of a convertible. And we all saw how that was a problem for JFK and everything. So I see why they've done it, but it just seems unreal.
Yeah, that is so much. I'd be curious just how much that thing could really take.
And what's the gas mileage?
Oh my God, that'd be a good question.
So I also have a killer fact for this week. We've talked a ton about coffins on our show over the years. Safety coffins, expensive funerals and gold caskets, cages over grave sites. I think that was in England, right? Where they did that? Scotland, etc. We've talked a lot about them. And today, I have a completely different type of fact regarding this very topic. So I'm going to tell you all about fantasy coffins.
Ooh, that's not like the Kiss ones, right?
I don't know.
I guess if your fantasy is Kiss.
If your fantasy is Kiss, it could be. I am actually coming from this business's website, and it's kanekwei.com. If you all want to check it out. Kane Kwei Carpentry Workshop is specifically what this business is, and this is what they have to say on their About section of their site. The story of the fantasy coffin begins in 1950s colonial Ghana. In Ghana, chiefs are often transported via palanquins during traditional festivals. In the 1950s, Seth Kane Kwei, a young carpenter, made a palanquin in the shape of a cocoa pod for one such chief. Unfortunately, the chief died unexpectedly before the festival, so he was buried in the palanquin instead. At his funeral, the unique coffin drew many admirers. Not long after, Kane Kwei's grandmother died. She had always been mystified by the planes flying overhead. However, she never got the chance to take a flight. Remembering the enthusiasm of the crowds at the chief's funeral a few months earlier, Kane Kwei decided to commemorate her death by giving her something she had not been able to accomplish in life. He buried her in a coffin shaped like an airplane so she could fly into the afterlife. Within a few weeks, local people began to request unique coffins. Fishermen asked for a boat, a farmer for an onion, etc., etc.
An onion.
Right. Okay, so
Couldn't be a tractor or something.
And it says, today there are almost 10 workshops specializing in such coffins. However, none compare to Kane Kwei Carpentry Workshop, the home of the tradition. Now, I want to show you a few of these custom coffins, Trevin. Here is one that is a corn cob.
Oh my. I would never have guessed that was a coffin.
I know. Here's one. I think that's a pencil, a mechanical pencil.
Okay. Oh, is that a Bic symbol on the side of it to look like an actual? Okay.
And then you can see a boat in the background of this one and a pineapple one in the front.
Damn. Those are cool.
This one is made to look like somebody's house.
Not practical though.
They're not practical, but these are all handcrafted, painted, designed wooden coffins that can be made to look into whatever you want. So I wanted to ask you, Trevin. I know you're afraid of death and all things that come with it, but if you could have a custom coffin, what would it be? I know I put you on the spot. I don't even know what mine would be.
I don't know if I would need it to be a fancy shape. If you were to just like mural it with a bunch of pretty kitties or something,
See,
that'd be fine with that. I love
kitty
kitties.
themed. Yeah, like maybe you don't want to be buried in a gigantic kitten, but like maybe it was decorated in the kitten theme. I love it. Yeah, no, these go hardcore. You are buried in a pineapple. You're buried in an airplane.
And they're like 3D, so they're really big.
They're very large.
Burying that would cost a lot more. I feel like you'd have to go way deeper.
Yeah. I don't know what their traditions are in Ghana exactly. I could have looked that up, I guess, a little bit more, but I assume they'd put them a certain distance into the ground, just like a normal coffin, but
And they're just so much larger.
and they're so beautiful.
I know, and you're burying that art, but I mean, it's for somebody else, so it's okay, I guess.
Yeah, but it is a unique thing, and I thought that this was a more beautiful, lighthearted version of what a coffin could be.
Yeah, I'm totally down with people who want to do that. Like, I'm not making fun of the act of it because, I mean, there's plenty of novelty things that I love. I love novelty, but this isn't one that I think I would want to do. But like I said, the Kiss coffins, I've seen the people who do that, and I think it's a little odd, but it's cool. It's cool that you like Kiss so much you want it to be wrapped around your dead body forever afterwards. That's fine.
Yeah. My dad always says he wants a Viking funeral where we're going to like have to find a body of water where we can light his ass on fire and send him out on a boat.
Or would you do the thing where you hire an archer to come shoot a flaming arrow at him?
Right.
From a distance.
We need to be that extra with it. But yeah, I had never heard of these coffins. And so I'll definitely post different pictures of all the different designs. But I had just never heard of it before. And I thought, how fun.
And they are so well made. Those are going to be fun to show the pictures of.
And the fact that there's 10 other shops in that area.
Good point. It must be a culture thing.
It must be. But I like it. It's a lot better than just going in a boring old box.
Yeah, I love creative stuff.
And you know what else is creative?
Is it buying products to keep people rich?
That's it.
Ding, ding. And we are back. This week, I've got my election special story. Because if you all didn't know yesterday, the day this is coming out, yesterday of today, a big event happened and people voted for things. And I want to talk about a time not too long ago where the same thing happened, but it got a little petty.
Ooh, do share.
So let's just be okay with a little bit of political satire and let's jump into this thing. And here we go. Elections. One of the so-called cornerstones of democracy. A chance for we the people to come together, raise our collective voice, and make a difference. Or perhaps more accurately, an opportunity to shove our loaded ideals into the hands of a wealthy benefactor who uses it to consolidate even more power. If you're someone with unwavering absolute beliefs and an unhealthy disdain for anyone who disagrees, then voting just might be the perfect civic duty for you. For us Americans, our vote counts, or at least that's what we're told. It's one of the few things we're supposedly born with in this country. We aren't born with a fixed gender identity or sexual orientation, but we are born with the right to vote. A right that may or may not be rendered meaningless by an electoral college. When we hit 18, our opinions emerge from their cocoon and blossom into a beautiful butterfly, which we cast once every 4 years, either to help the world, or let's be honest, to help ourselves. We are raised to believe that our vote is like a nugget of pure gold, individualized, precious, and ours alone. It gives us this unseen, often unspoken sense of power, a feeling of pride we're taught to carry from a very young age.
I voted.
But what happens when that vote, the one that makes us feel American, is rendered powerless? What happens when not only our vote, but the entire election we believe in, is stolen? In 2020, that unthinkable fear became a reality, shaking the foundation of a nation of 345 million people. It led to one of the biggest and pettiest crimes ever committed against an entire country. And today, after 4 long years of processing my thoughts on the matter, it's time I break my silence and share with you my version of the stolen election of 2020. The pettiest act to ever rock a nation.
And your 2020 homecoming queen, as voted by you, the students, is Emily Grover. There she is, Miss Homecoming Queen, Tate High School 2020. Her tiara shines so boldly and brightly.
Thank you so much to all of you who voted to make me your homecoming queen. It is such an honor to stand here in front of all of you, knowing that I was on your mind at least once this week.
Hell yeah, you were, baby.
I thought I'd take a moment to give you all some advice. Never give up. There were times during my 12 years at this school where I doubted if I'd ever get to wear this crown. Puberty was not kind to my skin in 7th grade, and I only led our volleyball team to 2nd place in state. I mean, 2nd place? For someone like me, that felt like a failure. But you know what? I didn't let it stop me. I learned that if you want something bad enough, you find a way. You put in the extra effort, the extra hours, whatever it takes to make sure you get what you deserve. And here I am, proof that with a little perseverance and some strategic decisions, anything is possible. Thanks to chemical peels and me pointing out that the refs clearly had it out for us. I was able to literally save face and earn your votes as the prettiest and most popular of our graduating class. Thank you all again, and thank God. They say heavy is the head that wears the crown, but I didn't think the weight would be felt this instant. Come on, everyone. Let's take off these uncomfortable heels and put on our dancing shoes. DJ, play Blinding Lights by The Weeknd.
News at 8. Did this Florida homecoming queen steal her election? You won't believe how she pulled it off.
I've always taken comfort knowing I can trust the high school homecoming electoral system. Now, I've lost faith in humanity.
Coming up after the break, hear how this driven young woman had her title snatched away by the liberal media. This is Fox News. An interrogation room. Quite possibly the worst place to answer questions. 3 plain white walls, with one almost entirely a mirror. A dreadful addition for anyone grappling with self-image issues. Behind that glass stands an unknown number of strangers, tasked with judging and dissecting the reactions of the interrogatee, all in search of the elusive truth. Alone at the steel table, Officer Marty Martindale, a rookie Florida cop, braces himself for the first of 3 interrogations scheduled for the day. The weight of those upcoming sessions hung over him, amplifying his nerves. He knows there are 2 figures behind the mirror, but the knowledge does little to ease his anxiety. It's like having a coworker hover beside you while you type, sabotaging your hand-eye coordination.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
All he could see reflected back at him was the holiday weight he packed on over Christmas, adding an extra layer of insecurity to an already tense situation. Trying to divert his attention from the 2-way mirror and onto the stacks of evidence and reports in front of him, Marty pressed record on the tape recorder at the center of the table.
Officer Martindale, March 2021, first interrogation of high school homecoming queen, Emily Grover,
he states in his big boy voice, making sure the colleagues in the other room know he's up for the task, even if his palms are glazed with sweat. With a subtle wave from his 4 fingers, the door creaked open. In strides Emily Grover, her hair still sparkling from the tiara she wore 6 months earlier, her smile radiant yet disconcertingly practiced, like a contestant who's rehearsed every line for the talent portion. Before making her way to the table, Emily stopped, glancing at her reflection in the mirror to check her hair and makeup. Marty kept a peripheral eye on the 18-year-old, careful not to look directly at her or his own reflection.
"Excuse me, Miss Grover, would you mind taking a seat?"
he asked, asserting his authority while trying to move things along.
Oh, I wouldn't want to inconvenience anyone by standing for too long,
she replied, quickly making her way to the table and into the chair opposite the officer. Marty fumbled through Emily's Miranda rights.
"You have the right to an attorney."
Her confident smile under the fluorescent lights made him slouch deeper, retreating into himself.
First of all, can I just say that illegal voting has been running rampant in our country? I don't think I need to remind you that right after my homecoming election, we had reports of illegals voting in our national election. Did you look into that as a possible cause for my homecoming discrepancy?
Marty pulled out a paper from his manila envelope, labeled with a header that read, Election Runner.
"This report says your high school's election runner software shows 117 false votes were entered, all for you,"
Marty stated, matter-of-factly.
"Are you saying that illegals infiltrated your high school's election and all just happened to vote for you?"
Oh, please. We both know high school elections are a magnet for undesirable elements. Why are you acting surprised?
Emily clapped back, quickly changing her focus.
Surely, as an officer of the law, you'd understand the flaws in an unvetted system like election runner. It's practically common knowledge among educated people. Christy's best friend's boyfriend from Pensacola High said they cast votes for me in the software, only to see them change to Misty Beaver. How do I know this isn't just a big cover-up to hide the shortcomings of the election runner software?
Damn it, Emily. We've got multiple classmates on record saying you've been bragging about having access to your mom's school account since freshman year, and Verizon just gave us the IP address from the votes that came in. 117 of them, all from one location, your mother's house.
Emily crossed her arms, pressing herself back hard into the metal chair. With her lower lip in a pout and eyes fixed on her reflection in the mirror, she confidently fired back.
And you just blindly follow the facts? Why are we trusting these so-called experts and woke phone companies that literally monitor everything between me and my mom's phones? Unless you can offer some tangible proof, I see no reason to continue this farce. Am I free to go?
With the same hand that summoned her in, Marty gestured for the guard to open the door.
"Right this way, Miss Grover."
Emily stood up, defiantly smoothing her outfit as she exited, casting one last smug glance towards the mirror.
"Not bad, Marty, but facts alone won't sway these people. Stay sharp and don't give up."
Marty sighed, pulling out his pocket-sized version of Interrogation for Dummies.
"But what am I supposed to do?" "I don't know, and that's why I'm so mad,"
Deputy Porkchop shouted in legal limbo, pausing to regather himself.
"Hey, for a first day on the job, at least the high school election is great practice. We've got her mom up next."
As Deputy Porkchop left, Marty hung his head, the weight of his self-doubt pressing down on him.
"She stole an election at 17,
he said under his breath, the words heavy on his tongue.
"And what have you done, Marty?"
He turned toward the mirror, his feet feeling heavy as he walked, pressing the bald patch of his horseshoe haircut onto the cold glass. He let out a shaky breath.
"Take a good look, Marty. You're more than a bowl of mashed potatoes and a bulletproof vest. You're a lawman. Time to act like it."
He paused, letting his doubts settle in the deepest part of his big toe.
"Now lift your head up and embrace yourself."
Marty, you know this is a two-way mirror, right? Show some professionalism, man.
Officer Martindale sucked in his gut and returned to the table, just as an unnamed officer escorted Emily's mother, Laura Carroll, into the room. The sight of an older woman made Marty feel even more uneasy. Mature women always seemed to have a sixth sense for his lack of success. After some awkward pleasantries, Marty read the necessary rights and disclaimers before hitting the record button on the tape recorder.
Laura Carroll, it's my understanding that you've come here to fully cooperate in answering questions about your involvement in the 2020 Tate High School Homecoming Queen election. Is that correct?
That's right, Your Honor.
The woman answered affirmatively. Although he was not a judge, Marty accepted the term of respect.
And what is your occupation, ma'am?
Laura continued her eye contact.
I'm the assistant principal of Bellevue Elementary.
Aha!
Marty shouted triumphantly, yanking a paper from his folder with all the drama he could muster.
Yet your profile was used to access hundreds of high school students' personal information needed to log in and vote in the election runner software. And wouldn't you know it, 117 votes cast from IP addresses tied to your Verizon account.
He pulled out even more papers, overflowing with numbers and big words.
I just need to know, Miss Carroll, was it both of you or just one?
Laura squinted at him, cocking a shoulder back in defiance.
Well, I'm not gonna tell you that.
Marty stared down at the stacks of damning papers, each one screaming her guilt.
These changes could mean over a decade in prison, Miss Carroll. Are you really willing to risk that?
Crossing her arms in the same defiant way as her daughter, Laura's voice hardened in defense.
I've been more than helpful, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm innocent. Am I free to go?
Deputy Porkchop immediately opened the door, diffusing Laura's attitude as soon as it peaked.
Right this way, Miss Carroll.
Laura stood, mocking Marty with a smirk as she walked out the door.
What the hell was that, Marty?
The deputy asked in disappointment.
You were supposed to get answers, not fold under pressure. She was playing along.
Marty slumped, defeated. A single tear dribbled into his puby mustache.
What are you gonna do now that I screwed this up?
Deputy Porkchop cracked a sympathetic smile, remembering how hard his first interrogations were.
I'm not gonna do anything differently,
he said, tenderly wiping the sweat stream off his coworker's head.
Relax, Marty. It's not like this is the presidential election or anything. Let's get you an easy case for the day's end.
Those always make me feel like a big boy,
Marty responded cheerfully. The other officer walked out the open door, reappearing shortly after, prodding a young girl into the room with Marty.
Get the hell in there, you troublemaker!
Deputy Porkchop yelled, slamming the interrogation room, leaving him on the outside. Marty looked at the young girl, standing as her knees knocked in cartoonish fear. Each breath was a short gasp, as if she were currently having a panic attack.
Samantha!
The officer took a steady breath, gathering his nerves. He hoped the young girl hadn't noticed just how much her scream had shaken him. Slowly lowering his hand, he softened his tone before speaking again.
Samantha Guerrero, this file here says you were recently suspended for covering Emily Grover's face with the school mascot in the yearbook?
Marty looked back at the trembling yearbook editor across from him. Her hands dropped to the table as she whimpered.
It was an accident. They already suspended me for the last 4 days of senior year and banned me from graduation. Haven't I suffered enough?
For a moment, Marty felt a flicker of understanding. Here she was, just another person fighting her own version of justice, like him. Besides, his fight wasn't with her, and asserting his dominance here, though scientifically proven to restore masculinity, wouldn't exactly make him feel like a bigger man. Glancing down at his stack of evidence, he landed on the yearbook photo Samantha had altered, a bucking bronco logo now covering the Queen's picture-perfect face. He chuckled under his breath, imagining how one less photo of Emily may have done more damage than his interrogation earlier. The irony was almost sweet. Deciding to take the high road, Marty leaned in and offered the girl a bit of advice.
Samantha, nothing scares a public school like a petition. Get 8,000 signatures, and I bet they'll let you walk at graduation. Now get going, and let's keep it that I never see you in here again.
He gave her a strange wink from the corner of his mustachioed face, ending his third interrogation and watching her walk off to what would likely be a future of creating political memes. As he sat alone in the quiet room, Marty couldn't help but reflect on his long day. He'd learned that a single funny picture could brighten a grim situation, that his negotiation skills were, let's be honest, terrible, and maybe just a little bit more about himself, even if that meant the rest of the world now felt just a touch stranger by comparison. In March 2021, 17-year-old Emily Grover and her mother, 50-year-old Laura Carroll were arrested for rigging the Tate High School homecoming election. They accessed the personal information of over 370 students, raising suspicions when Election Runner, the student voting platform, flagged 117 votes as false. This triggered a deeper investigation that uncovered over 250 altered ballots, including 117 votes cast for Emily herself. 9 witnesses later testified that they saw Emily using the school software some as far back as her freshman year, with all access and votes traceable to Carroll's Verizon IP address. Both were charged with unauthorized computer system use, unlawful use of a two-way communication device, criminal use of personal identification information, and conspiracy to commit a felony. They initially faced up to 16 years in prison. Emily, who turned 18 early in the trial, was subsequently charged as an adult. In early 2022, Emily completed a pretrial diversion program with 100 hours of community service, leading to her charges being dropped. In September of 2022, Laura accepted a plea deal, pleading no contest to the felony charge of unlawful use of a two-way communication device. This plea allowed her other charges to be dropped, and she was sentenced to 18 months of supervised probation with additional community service or fines. Following the case, Emily filed a notice of intent to sue the school and police officers, claiming her civil rights were violated. She cited her ruined reputation, stating the accusations had led to the rescission of her University of West Florida scholarship and a sorority invitation from Alpha Delta Pi. Reports also surfaced of classmates describing Emily as having a Mean Girls persona, though no updates of an official lawsuit or outcome were published. In 2024, with her charges dropped, Laura Carroll appealed to suppress her original statements, claiming she'd been coerced into answering out of fear of job-related consequences. The appeal was denied. Investigators noted she was free to leave during questioning and had refused to answer several times. Ironically, despite all the fraudulent votes, Emily would have won homecoming queen regardless. And there you have it, the crime that's been in the spotlight for the last 4 years. Maybe this story wasn't quite what you expected, but wow, look at the similarities. I know I made a lot of comparisons to our world, but the more details emerged, the harder it was not to. Each new revelation added to this case, and the relentless attempts to appear innocent despite the evidence, highlighted a kind of privilege you can't ignore. In cases like these, using the courts to dodge accountability isn't about seeking the truth. It's about bending it to make your version seem real. Winning becomes less about facts and more about how well you can sell the version you want people to believe. For me, writing this story wasn't just about a stolen election, though it sure mirrored the last few years of headlines and dinner table debates. At its core, it's about commitment to a lie, sending it through every possible channel until it almost looks like the truth. Because some people just can't admit when they're wrong. And whether it's a felony, losing a scholarship, or even dismantling democracy itself, anything can become cannon fodder in the battle between pride and humility.
You little shit. You got me good.
I didn't know if you knew I was going to go that way or not.
I didn't. I mean, we did have to confirm and tell people the names, so I knew that there was a female name in yours, but then I was like, well, it sounds like he's really just going to talk about the stolen election. Okay. So I didn't know where it was going to go, but you got me. You tricked me good.
I've been following this story for like 2 years.
Wow.
And I said, I'm not going to do this until the election. And I'll say it was a bit touch and go because the months leading up to this, there are certain points where I'm like, this shit, I cannot make this funny. It's not right. Like, it's too bad of a time in the world. But then I was like, no, I think I can do the satire piece and I think I can still cover this right. I will say a funny thing about writing this story. A lot of times I'll use ChatGPT to help me edit grammar mistakes and stuff.
Yeah.
Anytime I would paste something about this, it would just say, I cannot give you any advice on how to vote. Please go to howtovote.org or some bullshit. Even when I put stuff with a bunch of like nudity or something, and they're like, oh, I can't edit things with violence. And I'm like, oh, it's a fictional story. It's fine. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they just go on.
Oh.
I thought I could communicate my way out of this. I was like, it's okay, ChatGPT. I'm not trying to do that. I said, this is a story. Can you just judge the grammar of it? And they said, we can't give any details on how to vote.
Woo! Even ChatGPT left the chat with this one.
And I even said, I've never been mad at you before, ChatGPT, but I said, I'm actually very frustrated with you today. They did apologize, but still didn't help me.
Oh, no. I hope that one day there isn't like a whole documentary about your relationship with ChatGPT.
I love ChatGPT. A little fun inside baseball for me. Before I start every story, when I brainstorm my stories, I open up a ChatGPT and I say, all right, chatty boy, it's time to write a story for the podcast.
I love that. Oh my God.
And it's boy with an I, B-O-I.
Oh, I respect that even more.
Thank you.
So we don't know with 100% certainty that it was the mom and the daughter working together. It could have possibly just been the mom.
A lot of times it was used on her phone, and it seems like she just let her use her phone. Mm-hmm. I was just kind of using that to give Marty something more to follow up on. Okay. But it was very plain as day coming from the Verizon IP addresses. Some articles said the mom's phone only, but other ones were saying it was her account. So it was kind of tricky, but they also just would never really admit anything. Mm-hmm. But there were plenty of people that came forward that were like, oh yeah, Emily had it up on her phone and she was bragging and she was even showing us like other kids' grades that she was looking at and stuff because she had access to it.
Okay. Part of me was like, you know how there were all those college admission scandals going on, and sometimes the kids knew about it, but sometimes they actually didn't. Mm-hmm. And they were like, what? You photoshopped my face on what? And they were like, what? I just wanted to clarify that there was definite proof. Like, what if the mom was like a stage mom and she's like, my daughter must win the homecoming queen? You know, that would suck if it was that. But if there were eyewitnesses reporting she had access, that whole idea is null.
Yeah, I'd say there's a small chance that the daughter didn't do too much, but I feel very certain that she was aware of what was happening and that she did have access. And she's the elementary school principal, so she shouldn't even be accessing high school people's stuff. And the way it kind of worked and the way I have understood it was that the election runner software, the way to log in, you had to use like personal information, whether it be birthday, social security, I don't know. But I think what she was doing was she was using her mom's ability to get into the school software, looking up like students' birthdays or whatever, taking their information and then using that to log into the election software and then vote as them. Because some of the kids were like, oh, it said I already voted. Whatever, okay. So they just didn't question it. But the software caught something goofy with it and they decided to just follow through with it.
And she would have won no matter what.
The only thing that her cheating did was made her win by a landslide. That was the only thing it did. Now, it said that there was 250 other altered ballots, and they didn't explicitly say this, but I think she might have also maybe tried to work in who was the princess too, or maybe mess with the king. They didn't say that, but they just made a very big point to say that 250 were altered, only 117 were votes for her. So what was the other like almost extra half of that, you know?
Maybe she wanted to get a certain king to be crowned with her.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. And then it made her not go to the college and the sorority that she thought she was going to go to?
Yep. The college rescinded her invitation and she got so mad and said, like, they're ruining my life. It's not fair. But her argument was that the charges were dropped. I'm innocent. And it's like, no, the charges weren't dropped because you're innocent. The charges were dropped because the law, man. Like, yeah. And I've seen this happen with people. Maybe one day I'll tell this story, but when you get arrested for something, sometimes you feel that stigma on you of just like, oh, I feel like I'm a criminal now. And so then you fight. And sometimes you're not just fighting the courts, you're almost kind of fighting your own way you view yourself too. Mm-hmm. So then even though she gets the charges dropped, I think even with her privilege too, she's like, well, I want to go the whole rest of the way and just make it feel like it never happened. Mm-hmm. But that college was just like, yeah, sure, the charges were dropped, but we still know that you have the ability to do this and you might just do it again and we're not going to hire you again. Which you kind of almost wish that certain elected positions did the same thing, but what do I know?
It's always best when people are held accountable for bad actions. So yeah, I wish it was done for everyone who deserved it, but...
It is wild, though. You could have gotten 16 years in prison. One ends up getting 100 hours of community service. Another one got like a year and a half of probation. And then 2 years later, you're coming back and you're just like, I'm going to sue you because I didn't get into college for the consequences of my own actions. And then the mom comes out a little bit later and says, well, I want to get this scrubbed and say that the information they got from me was like gathered incorrectly. And it's just like, drop it. You avoided jail.
Yeah, you guys, this could have been way worse. Like, having access to people's personal information is a really big problem.
Think about all those 250 students or whatever that had all that information accessed, and their idea of justice is just that person got 100 hours of community service and they're trying to fight to still get into college. I'm not saying that having your information stolen, I'm sure millions of people on the internet have mine, but they got lucky that the juries and everything were able to see that, yeah, you had access to a lot of important information, but you didn't really use it for anything that mattered. You weren't like getting into their credit card stuff or anything.
Right.
You got lucky that people were able to see that your motives were stupid and you don't have to go to jail.
Take the embarrassment, take the ruined reputation, and move the fuck on.
But they failed on both of it, so that's great. I don't know where they're at now, but the privilege to go that extra mile is wild to me, and I had to just talk about the pride of being guilty and just having to push it, you know?
I love the way you wrote it. I loved the interrogation process of it all, the way that was told. It kind of reminded me of the Nicole Kidman show, The Perfect Couple, because they had a lot of different interrogation scenes, like in between different scenes. And I was like, oh, I love this vibe. Okay.
Well, at least we're not going to start with a big choreographed dance that's stupid as hell.
Wasn't that the most bizarre
God.
intro?
Emily and I were like, let's just watch this while we're on vacation, just whatever show. We made it like 20 minutes and we're like, this is stupid. And we turned it off.
Like I said, you certainly tricked me. And honestly, I love the story even more for it. So very, very good job.
Thank you. I had a lot of years to think it through.
It's funny because this week I didn't have years to think it through. I actually discovered this story very recently because I knew that yours was going to have a touch of political stuff thrown into it. But I will say this. Where the story takes place, I've been wanting a story like this for a very long time.
Okay.
So how it occurs has always been on my list, like do a crime that took place here. And then when I found one that had that plus tied into yours, I was like, we got to do it right now. So I won't build it up anymore. And there's not a ton of political stuff in mine, really.
Okay.
It's just like a little section of it, but here we go. What makes up a good comedian? Is it something you're born with, like an extra funny bone in the elbow? Or is it a skill that develops over years of lived trauma? Perhaps anyone can become a comedian, as long as you have something decent to talk about and stop for pauses to allow the audience to chuckle. Thanks for the pity laugh, Trevin. Okay, maybe not everyone can be a comedian. Besides content and timing, you have to possess a large amount of courage. Each time one of these stand-up comics takes the stage for a performance, they risk having tomatoes thrown at their heads. Or worse, not even getting a single pity laugh from the audience. These types of experiences would bruise even the toughest of egos. Today's story is quite the opposite of a laughing matter. So please, take your seats as the lights dim down low. It's time to start the Petty Show. It was a chilly October day in the coastal borough of Point Pleasant Beach, New Jersey, in 2022. A young lady was walking up and down the unfamiliar boardwalk, soaking in her new surroundings. Her name was Ariel Elias, pronounced Ariel by her Jewish family members, Ariel by her Spanish father, and Earl by her friends growing up in Kentucky.
Hey, Earl, let's go out tonight.
Regardless of pronunciation, Ariel was just passing through the area for work. She wanted to get a feel for the town she was in, as she took her profession very seriously. Working directly with the public was a large portion of her work. Plus, going on walks was a nice way to prep her legs for long hours and her lungs with clean city air. Ariel walked toward the address she was given for her shift that evening when she spotted the small building up ahead. It seemed welcoming enough from the outside, Yet, it didn't stop the nerves bubbling up inside of her. Tonight was the night Ariel performed her stand-up set at Uncle Vinny's Comedy Club. She spent many years as a comedian, starting with her first set during her bar mitzvah.
How did the rabbi make his coffee? He brewed it.
From then on, she knew her destiny was as a comedian, yet each stage and crowd came with their own complications. Some came with defective microphones, and others came with unhinged audience members.
That wasn't very funny.
There was always a general feeling of fear being a female comic. Plus, picking out an outfit seemed to be an impossible issue she struggled with far more than her male counterparts. To Ariel, the pros of making others laugh for a living outweighed the downsides. Now, she found herself standing on a small, illuminated stage inside Uncle Vinny's Comedy Club. Ariel's performance had drawn a decent amount of people and was starting off on a good note. The crowd chuckled along at her multiple name pronunciations and her eclectic origin story. Her confidence grew as she continued on with her set.
I have a lot of insecurities, and it really became clear when I went in to get an IUD. Now, if you don't know what an IUD is, it's birth control that goes in you, and then it gets you through 2 administrations. My doctor stopped in the middle of the procedure to tell me that I had a very narrow canal and that they almost weren't able to do the procedure. And I was like, stop! Oh my gosh. And she was like, it's a real medical condition.
The crowd seemed to be enjoying Ariel and her humor, so she decided it was the perfect time to try out her Q&A segment with the active crowd. Ariel spoke assertively into the mic.
So I'll take a few quick questions from the audience at this time.
There was a brief pause before a nasally voice from the back of the club piped out,
Did you vote for Donald Trump?
Ariel wasn't expecting that question to be asked, especially not as her very first question of the night. But because she had indeed asked for questions, she tried to keep it humorous and lighthearted.
Did I vote for Donald Trump? What do you think?
She clapped back at the woman, hoping to answer the divisive question with a question of her own. Yet the woman replied with a simple,
No.
It was clear this was an issue that wouldn't be easily swept under the rug, so Ariel asked the woman another question in return.
Okay, here's a question for you. Why would you ask me that question in here, knowing I'm the only Jew in the room? Are you trying to get me killed?
The crowd's laughter eased the tension a bit as Ariel reassured the pestering woman.
If it makes you feel any better, I vote in New York. My vote doesn't matter there.
A male audience member that seemed to be sitting next to the nasally woman reassured Ariel with encouragement, stating,
It doesn't matter here either.
Ariel knew it was time to wrap up the topic with a pretty bow, saying,
Guys, everybody, vote for whoever you want to vote for. I don't care who you vote for. I'm just happy we're all together.
There was another brief pause before the same woman from earlier shouted out a follow-up question.
So you voted for Biden?
Ariel took a deep breath, knowing it was time for a quick back and forth to shut this heckler up.
I don't know. What does it matter?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, so what? What does it matter?
I could just tell by your jokes that you voted for Biden.
I can tell by the fact that you're still talking when nobody wants you to that you voted for Trump.
The audience erupted in laughter as Ariel roasted the persistent woman in the back, including some of the other people sitting at her table. Yet, this didn't deter the woman from making one final statement.
So rude. Nobody was telling me to stop.
In which quickly, Ariel responded with,
All right, make some noise if you want her to shut up.
With at least most of the crowd on Ariel's side, she tried her best to press on with her act.
But I did ask if anyone had any questions. I didn't think it was going to be like that. That's on me. That was on me for thinking I could have a human interaction with somebody.
Ariel now knew that this wasn't the place for Q&As, as she guided her set back to the joke about her IUD.
Look, I'm such an insecure person. Here, I'll tell you the rest of that bit, and then we'll move on. I went and got an IUD.
But before Ariel could continue, She saw something whizzing out of the shadows and towards the stage. The item crashed loudly into the brick wall to the right of her, at the same height as her head. Ariel felt a wet liquid covering the back of her legs and dripping down the wall. She turned around to face the crowd in complete disbelief and horror. She couldn't fully process that a full can of beer had just been thrown at her. There were loud gasps from the peanut gallery, watching the heckling woman and her husband getting up and walking quickly to the exit. The random man who yelled out in defense of Ariel earlier got up from the table he was sitting at with the couple and yelled out,
"Are you fucking kidding me? Yo, I'm never coming to anything with this group of people again."
With Ariel's audience giving their attention to the drama unfolding before them, she was ready to gain back control of the crowd. She bent over and picked up the mostly full beer can that was chucked at her. She lifted the can to her parched lips and fully chugged the entirety of its contents, sending the stunned onlookers into a final eruption of laughter. On October 8th, 2022, comedian Ariel Elias performed a stand-up routine at Uncle Vinny's Comedy Club in Point Pleasant Beach, New Jersey. When Ariel asked the audience for any questions, it immediately prompted an awkward and tense conversation with another woman in the crowd. The exchange was politically charged, with the audience member asking the comedian to admit to who she voted for in the most recent United States presidential election, Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Just when the situation seemed to be de-escalating through humor, an opened and mostly full beer was thrown hard at Ariel, hitting the wall beside her at eye level. The woman that debated with Ariel and her husband then promptly left the comedy club, with one of their friends yelling at them as they left. Ariel then picked up the beer and chugged it, captivating her audience and going viral online. This well-known video allowed me to give you all a direct quote, play-by-play from her set to my story. The perpetrator who threw the beer was later identified, only it wasn't the woman who argued with the comedian about political parties. Instead, it was her husband, 29-year-old Tyler Fisher. The man was later identified by a handwritten letter sent to Uncle Vinny's Comedy Club shortly after the incident. The letter read in part,
"That poor comic could have been in the hospital in a coma. Disgusting behavior. We will never hang out with them again."
The author of the letter then gave Tyler Fisher's full name and home address. Tyler was charged with disorderly conduct, was fined $508, and was permanently banned from the club. Tyler told the Ashbury Park Press that he was not the person who threw the beer, but that he pleaded guilty because the cost of going to trial in municipal court was too expensive. Ariel was quoted afterwards by Newsweek today saying, "As soon as I picked up the beer and felt liquid still in it, I knew I had to chug it. It felt like the only way to recover. Also, suddenly I really needed a drink, so it really worked out." The club is pressing charges against him. I'm not, because in order to do that, I would have to return to Point Pleasant Beach, and I'm not doing that unless somebody pays me to. In the end, the viral video caught the attention of many well-known comics, celebrities, and television programs. Ariel went on to be described as a sly young comic from Kentucky by the New York Times, was featured in Rolling Stone, The Washington Post, and was on Good Morning America. She was named a new face at the 2021 Just for Laughs Comedy Festival, as well as Pace Magazine's Best Comedians of 2022. Shortly after the video was posted, Ariel received support from Jimmy Kimmel Online and was invited to make her late-night television debut on Jimmy Kimmel Live, which received over 1 million views on YouTube. And in 2024, she followed it up with another huge appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. What makes a good comedian, you ask? Beyond having a natural sense of humor and lack of stage fright, I would say rolling with the punches is high up on that list. Although the job of a comic is to make others laugh, there's a fine line between comedy and tragedy. You never know who may sit in the audience that evening, or what items could be thrown at your head. I encourage you all to be kind audience members to these humorous performers, because if not, you may find that the joke is on you.
I am so glad that they did get the person's name because I was afraid that this was just going to be that it was petty because they threw the beer and nothing happened to him.
Yes. And let me just say, even though I only had a few short days to write it and to get all the information, I watched a ton of her comedy videos. I also watched the viral video that I wrote the story on many, many times. And in all of the initial articles where I was just looking up her name and the club's name and everything, I didn't get anybody's name. And a lot of the quotes were saying that Ariel herself didn't see them. It was a dark club. She was under lights.
Yeah.
It would have been hard for her to identify anybody, just that she saw a woman and a man leaving together. I did a lot more digging and digging and digging, and then I kind of took her name out of it and was just like, New Jersey man throws beer at comic, and I tried to look at that way, and that's when I finally got articles with this guy's name in it.
Oh, that's so cool. So the crime part of it really wasn't that obvious. It was just the viral part was the obvious part.
To be honest, I didn't even know if the guy was charged because a lot of the things I found, Ariel was like, I'm not charging the person. I don't even know who it was, and I don't want to go back to that place. Like, I'm good. It was actually the club itself that did the charges.
Wow.
And I had to look in two completely different areas to get all the information. But I finally found him. I don't know if there's a mugshot. Didn't find it yet, if there is.
Okay.
I hope that I captured this comedian in a good way. She's so funny, you guys. You really need to go and look at her videos, support her, follow her on Instagram. I just think it's so cool to see somebody who is hustling so hard, kind of like we are in the creative. I mean, we're not comics, but it's a comedy show, you know?
Yeah.
We're just trying to make people laugh with our passion, be a good performer, right?
Yep.
And it was so cool to see her turn this horrible act that could have really hurt her if it would have just gone a tiny bit differently.
Imagine if it did hit her, how would she have handled that? Ugh.
I know. And she handled it and turned it into such an iconic and viral moment for herself. And I didn't exactly include this specifically, but Jimmy Kimmel had just made a tweet about it. I think he retweeted the video or whatever, and he said something about it. And Ariel tweeted back and was like, can you have me on to make my late night debut on your show?
Oh.
And then he responded and said yes. And he sent his people and they got her on the show.
You got to take advantage of that.
And that's what she said. She said, I had to shoot my shot. If I had that attention on me, I had to take my chance and ask and shoot for the stars. And it all worked out for her. And look at all the great accomplishments she's done after that.
That is so cool. The one thing that had me kind of second guessing that choice was just like, it was already opened. What if these annoying people had their gross lips touch it?
I know. In the video, it does look like it was like a freshly opened, so he must have taken a sip or I don't know.
That or it's like one of those bars where they have to open it before they give it to you.
Oh.
That's my one benefit of the doubt I can give to maybe you didn't drink after those gross people.
Yeah, that's true. But like she said, she was kind of in a very difficult situation, you know? And it's like, what do you do? And she's like, well, I was thirsty. I mean, the gal just has a lot of natural humor to her.
I mean, that's a very good way to handle the situation. In that, I think when you're stuck in it with just the nerves and everything of it, I don't think I would think about the drink either.
Yeah.
It's like Ozzy Osbourne biting the head off the bat that got thrown up there. It's the same thing. She's just drinking a beer.
Exactly. You have to roll with the punches. And that is really something that was made clear to me. Not only the bravery that it takes to go up there and do that, but then when you're faced with that kind of anger, I just thought that this comedian definitely deserves her time on our show when I saw this. And the fact that it was politically charged, it kind of just was like, see how a great night of humor and comedy and how she was trying to bring everyone together. See how easily it can get ruined by this division. It's so dumb.
Especially in a situation where that didn't need to really be brought up at all. Like of all the things to Q&A, who gives a shit?
And I didn't include this quote because this gal has so many funny quotes. But she also said on Stephen Colbert's show, she's like, Yeah, it was like a life-changing moment for me because, I mean, look at me, I'm on Stephen Colbert right now, and the video went so viral and whatever, but on the same hand, I really wouldn't have chosen Biden to be the person I took a beer to the head for.
Yeah.
She's like, I wish it would have been like Beyonce or something.
I support that, yes. I would hate to share the opinion of something like, out of two things, I guess that's what I go with. And then you like take a beer to the head for it. It's like, I don't feel that strongly.
Yeah. Kind of like I explained in the word for word exchange, there were so many times she was just trying to avoid answering it.
Which I don't blame her.
The lady would not let it go. Anyway, I just thought it was the perfect tie-in of comedy, politics, and humor.
And it does end with a crime. That was my one fear. I was like, I was hoping it wasn't going to just be a crime against humanity. I was so glad that it became an official arrest.
Yes. And if it wasn't for the club itself doing that, it wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the friend that sent in the letter giving this man's full name and address,
that person's the real hero.
That
the
really
real
is.
MVP. Because how many times have you done that where you've kind of been with people who maybe aren't close friends or are just kind of acquaintances that you like, and then they completely ruin the situation for you? Like for me, I've had this happen a couple times. I'll go out with somebody that I don't know that well, and then they like are a complete dick to the waiter or the waitress or something. Ugh. And I'm just like, I want to be away from this person right now so I can never hang out with them again.
I know.
If I was with somebody that was, that's like the waitress thing times 100.
Yeah.
Like not only heckling the comedian, but also heckling the comedian with stupid political stuff. Like, yeah, I would be pretty quick to probably dox that person too to the
club
establishment. Yeah, or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm just connecting dots here. I don't know for certain that the same random person that was in the crowd that was shouting out reassuring things and saying, I'm never coming here again with you, was the same person who wrote the letter, but it does kind of seem like it had a high possibility of being that.
Definitely.
But that same guy who was like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter here either, like trying to encourage her, he did have another line, but it kind of ruined the timing of it all. It was in between when your gal said, I can tell you voted for Biden from your jokes. And then she said, well, I can tell you voted for Trump. The fact that you're still talking and no one wants you to or whatever. It was in between though, so I didn't want to include it. But he again interjected and was like, why are we talking about politics? Like trying to like get it to stop.
Am I in the Twilight Zone?
But it kind of ruined the joke and the timing that I wanted to do. So I did cut that one. But this guy really is the MVP because right after they did it, he's like, oh, I'm never coming out with these people again. The person who wrote the letter said that again in the letter.
Wow.
I just love them.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, I felt the same way about cutting things off for the timing because in the recap, I didn't put the whole thing about my story, the girl getting in trouble for doctoring the yearbook. I didn't talk about that afterwards, but that actually was something that happened. It just didn't go in the recap because I wanted to focus on their thing.
Yeah.
But that was something that you and I had in common was I had to do a lot of digging for mine too. And you had to almost search very deliberately because I had to search Laura Carroll by herself many times and the Emily Grover thing because of all of the additional like trying to follow up and sue on their own respective lawsuits.
That's a really good point. Yeah, you did have to do that, I'm sure.
So we used so much journalistic integrity this week.
Honestly, I went on the comedian's website and I learned a lot about her backstory and her family. And then I watched videos of her. And then I had to look it up for that and look him up with this guy and see what the club charged him. And there was a lot of digging, but just glad that I got to tell it.
I'm glad you did too. And I think we did it. I think we did a good job of handling political conversation and political themed crimes without being too overly annoying with opinions, I would like to think.
No, we let the audience member do the annoying part for us this week. I feel like we had a lot of integrity and we stayed pretty chill about it.
Yeah, I try to be polite and not outwardly mean to people even when I think they're wrong in my stories.
God, I know so many wrong people in my life. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Oh, and quick one thing before we close this thing out. We are not going to have an episode next week. I actually wanted us to take a week after Halloween, but because of the election thing, I wanted to get this story off my plate. So no episode next week. I don't know what we'll put in the place of it, but we'll just see.
Yeah, and if you haven't already and you want some bonus content, come check out our Saw movie night on Patreon. It can make up for the week's absence.
It was a lot of fun.
Well, I just hope that no matter if you are in the United States or out of the United States, or you have an election coming up or you don't, that you just have the best week ever. And remember, no matter the crime, big or small, in the end, we're all doomed.
Doomed to vote.
Womp womp. Bye.
See ya.
If you need an additional pick-me-up after the election, come on over to Patreon. Movie nights, bonus episodes. Come find us on Patreon.
And I know right now it's probably a terrible time to be on social media, but if you just use it to follow us, you'll probably see some things that won't upset you. You can find us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, or Threads. Live, Laugh, Larceny.
And have you ever rigged a homecoming election? If so, send us your petty crime story. livelaughlarceny@gmail.com.
And give us 5 stars for how great these stories are. Maybe not so much the political opinions if you disagree, but give us 5 stars wherever you rate podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or Good Pods. We're covering politics in the way that we would. I think the only thing close to edgy was my dilemma.
Yeah.
Which was just like saying, I wish we saw more
pride and acceptance.
And people are going to be like, you are a sick fuck. How dare you say that?